All right. I think we're live. Here we go.
We're live. Yeah.
We are alive, Matt.
It's an exciting time. It's a very exciting time. It's exciting to finally get to do this with you again. I was gone for a couple of weeks. I had to do it solo last week, but the band's back together, and boy, did we have fun this morning! What a great session.
This morning was just so killer. I think what I love the most about the community is, for the most part, it's CMOs sharing their experience in real time, and I feel like this was the epitome of that. Because we had Christina, head of sales, CMO of Moz, literally giving the postmortem on MozCon, her huge event. And this is what we're all living through. So it was just awesome for her to share tips and tricks and, you know, what might go sideways.
Well, it was such a great example of just just the value of this group too. I mean, we don't record these sessions because we want people to be able to speak candidly, and she brought it. I mean, she answered every question. She was very candid and transparent about what didn't work, including some painful lessons on a variety of fronts. I think it was, I mean, clearly the event was a success. I mean, the volume of people they were able to engage, the quality of the content. I think a lot of good lessons for her, for Moz, for the rest of us in terms of how to do virtual events well. Some cautionary tales that, quite frankly, none of us probably would have thought about. She didn't certainly think about until sort of, you know, the you know what hit the fan. But, you know, one of the things that made me think a lot about, and I know we'll get into the details here on some of the things, is, you know, when we're doing virtual events, what are we doing to create attendee value, and what are we doing to create value? And I think the attendee value piece we're definitely getting better at. I think that, you know, in terms of creating good content and engagement and interactivity, we're getting there. I think the sponsor value we're still working on. I think there's a lot of road to play there. But now, what were some of your favorite takeaways from her sort of postmortem on MozCon Virtual?
So, well, even before MozCon, the survey that we sent out, I thought it was really interesting that on the whole, CMOs feel that their virtual events are more successful than their in-person ones. So yes, we are figuring things out, and we are trying to create the, you know, mind-blowing experiences that we had, but on the whole, the medium is effective. So I think that was made me optimistic. But specific to MozCon, I loved how she said, you know, at the end of the day, you got to take the fluff away and focus on the most important thing. Really, why are people there? Yes, they love the snacks. Yes, they love the parties. But she stripped it all away and said, we're going to make the content like the star. And so I thought that was really interesting. And she had some good tips about, you know, it's one thing to say that, but making sure that you had a great AV team, making sure that all the speakers got kits before, making sure that the speakers were prepped, having like the quasi live environment. So they were pre-recorded. So it had really high quality content and it was very, very professional done, but allowing the chat to be live, I felt like was a total best practice and a great idea to kind of have the best of both worlds. So that was a good takeaway for me.
Yeah, I agree. A couple of other things that I liked a lot. She mentioned a code of conduct that it asked participants and sponsors to adhere to. I think, you know, it's something that you may have a privacy policy or some legalese somewhere in an agreement, but to have it be a very sort of simple, very clear document that creates an environment for professionalism and inclusivity, I thought was really, really smart. So I thought that was great. I also love that they charged for it and were very smart about how they did that. It wasn't the full price that you would typically pay if you went to a live event. It was a number that was material that I think probably helped get the right people signed up and people that were committed to and would actually show up for the content. She gave an example without naming names of another company that, you know, she was I think in their space that had, like, you know, promoted the fact they had like 10,000 people signed up for their free event. And then there were like 300 people that actually showed up, right? And so I think, you know, numbers can be deceiving and numbers can be counter to being valuable if they're not bringing the right people to the audience. So
right, and that's kind of one of those things that I think with virtual we've got to get our heads around, that like just because you have 10,000 people registered, it's kind of an ego thing. Like, I got all these people to my website, but they weren't even the right people. Maybe it's better to have 50 people and have a totally different experience. And those same rules apply that we had for physical events, that, sometimes it feels good to have like all these people registered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And on the contrary, when they would do MozCon, Moz is based here in Seattle. MozCon it's a global phenomenon, but it is a very big deal when it's held here in the summer every year. And I think traditionally they've had, 13, 14, 1,500 people come, for the conference. They had almost twice that in the virtual format, right? And so if you think about this
and twice that engaged, like they could tell
exactly.
with the chats and everything that they were engaged.
So if you think about, the goal of an event, if you're Moz, you're doing a user conference, the goal is not to put on a live event. The goal is to engage your community. Mm-hmm. The goal is to sort of perpetuate, content and education, expertise, and loyalty to the brand. If you can now do that in a virtual format, it's still, it was still a significant expense, but a fraction of what it would have been live, pack twice as many engaged people. Well, that sounds like a win. And, at the edges to improve around interactivity and community and tech platforms and all those things. But some just amazing lessons, I think, whether you're doing big events or small, the things to think about, the things to be aware of, and really stepping back. And as you mentioned, too, like less is more, doing fewer things, doing them really, really well, and just being focused like that.
Yeah. And I think what we're all still cracking the code on, and we talked about a lot this morning, is how do you replicate the coffee stand and the networking and the eating lunch together? And so I think we had a really good idea exchange on really where almost like these chat platforms and embedding, you really have to, I think, mimic a Slack-like experience. That's about the best I think you can do. But a lot of the chats in the event software doesn't live up to that. And so people are kind of bringing those two worlds together, which I think is really smart.
Yeah, I don't have the right answer to it, but I think, we'll figure it out eventually. And then, like we were joking, we're going to go for this idea, but even just within the coffee topics, there's a really, there's always like the discussion going on amongst people on video, and then there's like a pair of equally valuable conversation going on chat within Zoom. But as soon as we end the event, the chat is gone, right? And there's a lot of stuff in there that would be really great to have on Slack, or to have on a discussion board, or to have on the Content Hub, let alone the fact that there may be things that you're sharing as a highlight from an event somewhere. And wouldn't it be nice to have a little checkbox, tweet this, like put this on my social channel? Maybe not everything does, but some. So there's
I
that
hope there's some VCs listening to us right now, because we got big ideas.
Well, we can. Oh right? No, I think this. I don't have a lot of time on my hands, but this sounds like a good side hustle. Like, we should figure this out. The other side hustle is, if we can crack the code on how to legit create value for sponsors and advertisers and events, right? To like figure out how, because if you're manning the virtual booth, if you've got your logo on a slide somewhere, that is not the same as being at the booth in the trade, being in front of your prospects, actually legit engaging with qualified, interested leads at the event.
See, I don't know. I'm gonna have to say, like, I hated trade shows, and I always thought booths were kind of inhumane and lame anyway. So, like, can we not have the challenge to recreate? So then when we try to recreate a virtual show floor online, I'm like, okay, that's the worst of the worst. I think we just need to totally rethink, if you believe in a sponsor enough to have them at your show, how are they incorporated into your content? How they need, how are their SMEs part of the chat? I just think we need to rethink the whole sponsor, we throw you in a kiosk and hope for the best strategy to begin with.
I completely agree with you. I think because of the now transparency of engagement you have with a lot of interactive events, you think about, like, as an advertiser, as a sponsor, you have, let's say you, like, just again, like, not our booth, but you have your booth, and that only 1% of people coming to the show are people you want to engage with. I think you look at the old. I mean, we may never see Dreamforce the way it operated again because you have such a variety of people showing up. You only care about a sliver of people there. Well, what if you could, as a sponsor, only engage with that sliver? What if you could create a way where it's mutually beneficial for the prospect to engage with companies they care about and vice versa? So no, there's this is not, I mean, you talk a lot, like, especially in your book, you talk about exponential change. Like, this is not an opportunity for incremental change to figure out how to replicate the booth online. No, I think there are no sacred cows here. What we have to figure out for the benefit of everyone involved, the event producers, the attendees, as well as the sponsors and exhibitors, there's value to be had there.
Yeah.
There's a value exchange that can be recreated. Clearly we haven't cracked the nut there, but again, if VCs, if you're listening, not a side hustle, we'll go figure this out.
We're in for the side hustle. And we might, we're thinking about doing, for all the field marketing teams out there, I'm committed to this. So we want to do a huge idea jam hackathon. How do we reimagine, and let's not, like, I think we kill webinars and I think we kill trade shows because they're both archaic. And then what's the future of the digital experiences we can create? I don't know. It sounds like fun to me. Giddy up.
Oh, I mean, we're not going to figure it out in an ivory tower. We're going to figure it out with people that are doing it. And we're going to figure it out by testing and failing and testing again and innovating. And, no better time like the present to do that. No better time than as we sort of round the corner soon into fall and into planning season for the next, calendar fiscal year. But we've learned a ton as a B2B industry in the last, 4 to 5 months, at least enough to have some informed decisions and make some informed conjectures about what field marketing should look like into 2021. So that's a big topic, but I agree with you. I think that we're going to fit out more efficiently and more swiftly if we all do it together.
Yeah. And then I think just the last point from this morning, and then we'll wrap, is just because it's virtual doesn't mean it's going to be free or inexpensive, meaning to put on. Like, it still costs for the platform. And if you do a direct mail send, all these things are still costly. And so I think that's a myth that we need to make sure people understand. And then the other thing is just that the workload. I actually think it's harder on our field marketing teams than ever before because the amount of creativity. And you fast forward a year out, maybe 2 years out, I don't think the virtual component is ever going to go away. So then we're going to be literally almost producing 2 events, a physical and a virtual with a hybrid model. So hopefully field marketers feel like there's tons of job security. I feel like there is lots of creativity, lots to be done in this space. And I'm a field marketer at heart. So I love today. Thank you to Christina, and thank you to all of our lively CMOs.
It was great. I think it's not an easy for, and it was a lot of fun to talk about this morning. If you'd copy of Christina's presentation that actually kind of good and bad, have that up on the Coffee Talk Content Hub. So definitely check that out. Again, we don't record these sessions. We record these videos, but the sessions record. But a lot of the examples, templates that get discussed get put up there. So make sure you're checking that out if you're a leader. And this has been fun. Another good week of content. I was just looking at the attendee survey for next week's topics. I'm super excited about all 4 options. So we got a lot of great topics coming up.
All right, everyone, have a good weekend.
See y'all.